Okay, hello, welcome everyone. My name's Andy Styles. I'm from a company called Risk Evolves, and we're working with Marble Arch today to talk about cyber security, cyber safety, and the kind of things we need people to be conscious or aware of because cyber crime is escalating. So we've got a few slides to run through for you today. This webinar will last for about 50 minutes to an hour, and obviously any details or questions that you've got, then by all means use the links that we've got at the end of the presentation in order to help you. So what we'll look to cover for you today are what does cybercrime and what are cyber threats? What does it really all mean? We'll then start to talk about what kind of attacks are being committed, the kinds of things that might affect you and I. We'll talk about the risks, because obviously as part of coronavirus, obviously most of us now, as a lot more people now working from home, so therefore we need to consider, is there a greater risk now in terms of cyber threats and cyber attack from working from home? And then a really important aspect around how do we protect ourselves. So as I said, we'll look to cover and we'll give you details of all of these as we go through. But we'll kick off with what are cyber threats. So in terms of official definition, a cyber threat is anything malicious or anything that's going to cause damage, looking to steal data or disrupt digital life in general. Now, cyber is a term that relates to anything to do with PCs, phones, Android phones, iPads, anything in that digital world, anything that's linked to the Wi-Fi access. So any cyber crime or any cyber threat is anything that's linked in some digital format. And the kind of threats that we'll see are computer viruses and malware, data breaches, something called denial of service, which is something committed by cyber criminals in order to attack a large organisation. And the kind of things that we could expect to see as a result of that will be somebody injecting or putting malware onto our computers, which is malicious software that's going to cause damage to our computer, or it will look to steal information. So it may be that it's something that's trying to take or hive off information for another purpose. Now, the graphic on the right is taken from the National Cybersecurity Centre. So at this point, I'll mention the National Cybersecurity Centre because it's UK government that are putting out a wealth of information to help users, whether it be us as home or to businesses, around how we keep ourselves safe. And obviously, they've issued a lot of guidance. So they're talking generally around the kinds of attacks we're seeing, where they are coming from. So in the middle there, you've got hackers. So most of us will turn around and understand a hacker is someone trying to steal or break into our computers. But perhaps what we're not aware of now is that hackers are being employed by criminal gangs. Organised crime will employ a hacker in order to turn around and gain information. So what you've got there is the hackers themselves are stealing information and giving it to the cyber criminals. So all of the fraud and the loss of monies we're talking about is being committed by the cyber criminals rather than the people that are hacking into our systems themselves. And typically a hacker could be a young 17-year-old, 18-year-old boy that's learned a few computer skills that's now being employed by a criminal gang just because they've got the skills in order to steal information. They will pay that hacker to get that information. So from the people that are doing it, that they're earning, but may not understand the damages or the real threats that they're causing in terms of the wider economy, etc., etc. Also aware that a lot of attacks now are coming through foreign governments. You would have seen through the last series of US presidential elections around the threat that Russia tampered and interfered with that. We know that the WannaCry ransomware attack that hit the NHS back in 2016 was now something that was led by the North Korean government. So governments themselves, because of the power and the damage they can do, can start to commit some form of cyber attack that's going to cause some kind of disruptive outcome. You also got political activists, terrorists, malicious insiders. So again, there's a lot of bad things that are happening. From a terrorist could be just because they are going to cause you damage, through to at the very bottom, people just genuinely making an honest mistake. And the thing is that if you are subject to a cyber attack or a cyber threat, you may not know who's behind it. You may not know the real reasons that this attack is being done. And more importantly, you may not understand what damage is being created. So what I'm going to do now is quickly show you a video, and we'll talk about the video after it's finished. So I'll get it set up.
Hot chocolate.
What's the name?
Joelle.
What was the name?
Alex.
Alex. There you go, Johnny.
Cheers. If you like our Facebook page, we give you a free hot drink and a free pastry.
We have a new like for Damien. We have a new like for Damien.
Hey, Carly, are you standing by?
Standing by. Hi there, can I help?
Yeah, I just liked your Facebook page.
Okay, I'll search Facebook now.
I'm searching Google.
Have a phone number.
I've got his email address.
Okay, Carly, are you ready for information on Damien?
Yep, I am.
Mother's maiden name is He banks with
Carly, this is the girl coming in now to Blue Scarf.
What's her name? Nicholas.
Nicker. His date of birth, 7th of May. She lives at 38A.
Just be a couple of seconds.
2 children, age 4 and 6. Previous address. She's got the postcode.
Yep, got it. Damien, age 26 and a fitness instructor.
How do you know what that?
Where did you go to UCL? Martin who went to South Thames College. Assistant psychologist at Great Ormond Street. How did you know?
That is... I don't really understand.
Huh? Pardon?
You know I'm a Christian as well.
Oh, yeah, we know everything about you, Martin. Thank you. Nice to meet you, Anna from Russia.
Okay, so that video was deliberate to turn around and just show you how easy some of these cyber attacks can be committed. As you can see there, that just through liking something on a Facebook page, people will be able to find out information such as your mother's maiden name, your date of birth, where you work, your home address. That is a lot of information that we are readily making available to the cyber criminals, to the people or to the hackers that will steal the information in the first place. And as you can see, it's very easy. And the thing is, because you may not really, you may not appreciate how much information is out there or what you can do with it, it's so easy now for cyber criminals to gain a lot more information about you. And in the world of cybercrime now, it's quite common that the more they can find out about you, the more likely or the more successful attack can be. A true story now, when these things happen, it tends to come through what are called social engineers. So social engineers are people that are being paid to find out about a key individual. Now, this could be somebody in a position of power within a company, perhaps as the financial director or the MD. And this social engineer was employed by a bank, and the security officer of that bank was so confident that she had set herself up that she couldn't be hacked or she couldn't click a phishing email because she was aware of what she needed to look at, etc., etc. The company employed a social engineer with the sole objective within 1 week that security person, the social engineer was going to get that security officer to turn around and click on one phishing email. Within the space of a week, they got that person to click on 4 phishing emails. Now, the first thing the social engineer will do is just go into all the Facebook, the social media pages to see what they can find out. And the first thing they found out about the security officer is they were very good on their own privacy settings and what they did themselves, but they found out that she had some children and the children were not as secure. In particular, a son, and through her son, they were able to gain a lot of information, such as the hometown where she worked, the fact she had her 50th birthday coming up, and all these other interesting things that the social engineer was then able to play on. And the kind of things that eventually happened is they found out she had a dog, they knew the dog's name, they knew the hometown she lived in, so that hacker could go to the local veterinary practice in that hometown, or the one closest to that town. Yeah, and lo and behold, the dog was a patient of that veterinary practice. So therefore, the hacker was able to impersonate the veterinary practice in order to get the person to click on an email. The point we're making here, this is very easy and a lot easier than we may envisage. So therefore, our diligence in terms around being alert and aware at all times is so important. And quite common, convicts, that people that have been convicted for crime will just talk about how easy it is to get the information. So the thing is with a hacker, they don't have to work hard to get the kind of information that's going to turn around and cause a damage or cause a massive problem to us. So the fact that the information is there, what kind of things do we see? What are the common means of attack? Now, these are the latest top 5 common attack vectors. Now, a vector is just the means in which it's done. So ransomware still stands out as the #1 form of attack. And for those that aren't aware, ransomware is a form of malicious software that basically encrypts your entire data on your computer. So if you use a computer on your own that's not linked on networking, save everything to your computer, if you get some ransom on your computer, it means you cannot use that device. You cannot use it. It's completely locked down. Now, you could pay the the cyber attacker a ransom fee in order to, so you'll pay the money in order to get back to your data, or you then have to turn around and two other choices. One is that you just dump the PC and go out and buy a new one and start again, which means you've lost all your data. Or if you're good and diligent and you've created good, strong backup that's regularly updated, then through an IT expert, they can recreate your computer from backup. And obviously that takes time. Obviously in doing that, they're basically having to go into your computer, remove all the viruses and the software that exist on there, and then recreate everything for backup. Now, for those that have been through that experience, you can bet your bottom dollar that when you try to back up, there's problems, therefore you lose information. It becomes an inconvenience. But more importantly, you may be without your PC for a number of days. And if this is your sole source of income because you're a sole trader or a business and you rely on the data on the computer, that has a serious impact on the service you're providing to your clients, etc., etc. So ransomware is a nasty form of attack, but it is very common. Probably we're all more familiar with phishing. Phishing emails is obviously an attempt to gain information, and pretty much most of the cyber attacks and threats you'll see will emanate or start from a phishing email, something that's got you to click or passing information that could have lent itself to a more detailed cyber crime or cyber fraud as a result of it. And we'll talk more about phishing a little bit later. Increasingly now, cyber hackers and attackers are aware that we use more than just our PCs. So therefore, the fact we're using smartphones, tablets, and other forms of portable storage, which are USB sticks or to put information on, thieves recognise that some of these other devices may not have the security that our PCs have. So therefore, there is a chance that data is being leaked outside. So therefore, they're expanding their remit to penetrate or steal data through these other devices. Obviously, good old hacking still remains, where people are trying to break into your computer and steal it. And as we saw from the video, that we don't necessarily have to be sophisticated in order to be able to perpetrate an attack, because there's so much information already about us. And then, as we're also seeing a lot as well, is that the insider threats, the staff are committing or leaking data that turns around and results in some form of cyber attack against the company. So again, your staff are often a means in which will cause you some form of data breach or possible cyber threat. So how often is this happening? How much of a threat is the cyber attacks? Is it common? Do we see a lot? So just some statistics here in terms of, we are seeing most businesses now will be subject to some form of phishing attack. And obviously from a business point of view, they're more likely to attack a business than an individual, because there's more data to be stolen. There's more information potentially of value to be stolen. But obviously it's not just, let's face it, it's not just businesses. Anybody is receiving phishing emails. You only have to look at your junk or your spam filters that you've got in place and to look at the number of emails that are coming through. And I said, on average, everybody's user account or email account will see at least 16 phishing emails a month. And obviously how bad these are will depend on obviously the purposes of the attack itself and what we'll be looking to do. And then of those emails, 1 in every 100 now is malicious, which means if you click it, you've got some serious problems, such as a ransomware attack that goes through your business. But I think that the stat above, that 1 in 10 URLs are malicious. Now, what is a URL? URL is a website address. 1 in 10 website addresses are malicious. So what does that mean? That means if you visit that website or go to that website page, you are likely to bring in malicious software onto your device that could cause or enable a hacker to hack you or information to be stolen. 1 in 10 websites are malicious. And obviously what's happening as well now is that we're seeing genuine websites that have got malicious links created on those websites. As I said, British Airways, I'm sure you'll all be aware, and we've seen in the news that September last year they had a major attack that happened whereby 350,000 credit card details were stolen. And this was created by a malicious link on their website that basically copied all of the details of credit card information. So do we think the British Airways were negligent and incorrect? Of course they weren't. Somebody had hacked into that system, enabled that to happen, and as a result, British Airways suffered quite a serious cyber attack. So websites themselves are definitely something we need to be aware of. And then at the bottom of the slide there on the left, we've got 2 statistics that a hacker is attempting to turn around and steal information every 39 seconds. every 39 seconds. And I think perhaps more worrying that within the UK, there is an attack on a UK business every 40 seconds. This is serious stuff. This is stuff that may not cause you personally significant problems, but for the UK economy, for UK businesses, for the money that's involved with this is a serious issue. And you can see on the right, there's some statistics around the kinds of numbers we're talking about. So BBC News, their UK cybercrime victims lose £190,000 per day through cybercrime. £190,000, and this is at a cost to the UK of about £27 billion, of which just stealing the intellectual property of a business, i.e. your core USP advantage as a business, is costing around about 9.2 billion per annum. Now, the volume is significant, and the reason all that is significant is because there's big financial gains to happen from that. And as I said, and as we've touched on already, it could be that you've got somebody that's hacked into you, that sold the information to a cybercrime gang that's perpetrating all of this, but genuinely, in a lot of cases, you won't know. And the thing is with cybercrime, cyber criminals love bad news. And at the moment, we're in the heart of lockdown restrictions still as a result of coronavirus. So therefore, the hackers realised that we have a thirst of information around coronavirus or COVID-19. So we want to know more about this information. And as a result, the cyber criminals will jump on the bandwagon to go with that. So it's estimated there's been around about 700% increase in the volume of phishing emails. 700%. And these will be potentially good quality emails now, because obviously a hacker will know more about us. They can create a phishing email that we're more likely to click on. Hundreds of thousands of new URLs or websites have been created. Now, is that because they're bad or not? We genuinely don't know, but clearly we're seeing evidence now of online marketing places selling things like PPE that simply don't exist. So therefore we're paying money through malicious pages or fake websites that's costing us a fortune. And I think that the last one there was a news story that came through the BBC last week. Google are blocking 18 million scam emails every single day. 18 million every day that are linked to coronavirus. So at this current time, we all want the thirst of information. The hackers have jumped on the bandwagon, and you can bet your bottom dollar that we're going to see a significant rise in the level of cyber crime, fraud as a result of this, because we are going to get caught out. So what kind of things do we expect to see? So here's an example of phishing emails. So these are all phishing emails that are related to me or have a relevance towards me. So this is an email that I got on the 9th of May that came through saying it's important, and there was nothing there. It just said view an article. Now, obviously, I'm hopefully savvy enough that I'm not going to turn around and click on that. But, can you genuinely say that if you saw something that was important and there was information you needed to read, would you click on it? Hopefully not. But then would your children, would your elderly parents, would somebody less vulnerable click on it? Because the thing is, once you've clicked on it, you've allowed the hacker into your system, whether it be malicious software or past your security defences. And often what we'll see with phishing emails, they are designed to create a level of concern or urgency in order to get you to click, because if they create that level of anxiety, we're more likely to do something with it. So that was an example of a phishing email where there was just nothing there, but they could come from what may appear to be genuine sources. So this is the Nationwide writing out saying that we've got a new security upgrade. So we're doing stuff. Hey guys, look at us. We're trying to do stuff to help you. But this in itself is also a phishing email that would cause you issues. Now, a couple of things to highlight here is it's addressed to a customer. A lot of phishing emails are still impersonally addressed. So it's usually an alert, a warning sign that if you bank with Nationwide and they've addressed you as a customer, that this isn't genuine. As you can see here, they want you to click on an email. Again, they want you to click on something because that's the means to get into your device or whatever it may be. And as you can see, the website address here is www.nationwide.co.uk. It looks genuine. Now, as I said, I'm sure you'd be aware that most recommended tips now to do with phishing emails, if you hover over the URL address or the link, you see the hand there, so you've hovered up, you'll then get the actual address that this is coming through. So here's a dead giveaway as to this is actually saying it's meant to be going to Nationwide, but actually in fact it's going to this drink receptor or receptor. What that will do, no idea, but obviously clearly not genuine. There's a couple of warning signs there, but the warning signs were getting harder to spot. We'll also see examples of things like Netflix. And I've got a Netflix account, and if you get something from Netflix saying your validations fail, it feels like that's going to have a bearing on interruption of my service. And again, if you turn around and looked at this link itself, this continue link, and see where it's going, it's not going anything to do with Netflix, and therefore is in itself is a problem. And then you get situations such as this, whereby this was a college that I worked with, where the head of IT turned around and got an email turning around saying their account had been temporarily suspended. And obviously, as the head of IT, if their account's been suspended with 700 people working from them, this is a massive problem. So the head of IT, in a moment of madness, decided to click on the link and injected malware into the college that caused serious embarrassment only to their security, but also some disruption to what they were able to do. This shows you how easy. This is genuine. This looks genuine. There's nothing here that would give you an early warning sign of a problem. But the minute that was clicked, there was unusual things going on across the college network. They are getting better and harder to spot. And then you get situations such as this one. Now, as you said, I work for a company called Risk Evolves. Helen Barge is our MD, and we're going through the ISO 27001 security standard. So as part of that, through conversations I have with Helen every single day, I'm aware that we were updating our security policy. So Helen sent everyone within Risk Evolves to say, here's a copy of our new security policy, which we need to be aware of for the ISO standard. I was expecting to turn around and see a new security policy. But in a moment of madness, I decided to click the link on the email. And as a result, this was a fake phishing email that was set up by Helen to turn around and test us, and I was compromised. That is how easy it is. Now, the warning sign's there because you can see at the top of the screen here, there's a red box that says this email originated from outside Risk Evolves. I see these on every single email come through, didn't clock it on this one, and therefore clicked on something. So even us that are used to seeing and dealing with these every single day are still susceptible to clicking on phishing emails. And with phishing emails still being one of the main attack vectors that cause a problem, we need to be alert. And often, because someone through social engineering or through what they can do, checking details, they can see what kind of things we like and what kind of things we do. So therefore, the chances of actually getting an email that looks genuine about something we're expecting are massively increased. And of course, once you've clicked, you then start the problems in terms of the potential threats. National Cybersecurity Centre, in terms of the UK, have recently launched a phishing reporting service. So if you get a phishing email, you can send it on to the National Cybersecurity Centre, and they will investigate and take action to turn around and block, stop, or disable this URL or this page going through. So this was launched, I think, around about 4 weeks ago. Just report any phishing emails you get by the report at phishingemail.gov.uk. They will then investigate, and I think since this service was started, and I don't know the volume of phishing emails that have been reported, but they've already taken down around about 150,000 malicious sites. So they're doing what they can to try and help us, but obviously they need our help in terms of in making them aware of the kind of stuff that's coming through, because we'll be getting it every single day. And what we need to bear in mind, that it's not just phishing. Phishing is what comes through as an email account on our PCs, but we're now seeing a definite increase in the volume of what's called smishing or text. So on the left of the screen there, you can see a text that you would have got saying the UK government has issued a payment to all residents in response to COVID-19. So again, it's the COVID-19 story, and you think, oh, they're going to pay me some money. So therefore you click on that link and it takes you to what appears to be this genuine page on the right. So this looks and feels genuine in terms of a UK government page. It's been created as such, but obviously what it's doing is getting you to input information that is then being stolen and used. And this has been massively a huge volume of these have been seen, and a huge volume of people turn around and gone on to enter the details. Nothing happened. They just walk away, think, well, nothing bad's happened. Let's carry on. But actually, your details have been stolen, and potentially there could be then a latter attack or compromise against you. But we're also seeing just genuine telephone calls. Phishing, as it's commonly referred to, will be somebody ringing you, claiming to be somebody else to try and get details or information from you. And now with things like this fake caller ID, it's very easy for someone to impersonate the original phone number of a legitimate person. So, for example, on your Android, on your mobile phone, you may get a phone call from me that says Andy Styles is on the phone, and then you turn around and think, okay, I know Andy, this is Andy, you're answering the phone, and then all of a sudden this woman starts saying, oh, I'm Andy's wife, he's not available, but he's asked me to give you a call. And before you know it, you're having a conversation with a hacker or a criminal that's trying to hive off and steal information. Now, at the start, you remember I showed you, sorry, beg your pardon, there's another video that links in that gives you more examples of that. But phishing is becoming more common. And I said, this is all about just trying to steal information. Now, I won't go through the next slide, but these are all the legitimate wording that talks about what phishing, smishing, all these kind of things will mean. But what I will talk about is what happens when you click. Now, for a lot of people, and it's often or commonly said to us, so I don't really have any information that's worth stealing, or I had my email account was compromised. People sent emails from my account without even thinking about the seriousness or the potential serious consequences that go with that. So let's face it, if you click on a phishing email, you're not quite sure if you turn around and click on the link or the information and know exactly what's going to happen. But it could be from the right-hand side that it's going to put ransomware, malware onto your computer that locks your computer, and then the hacker or the criminal is going to try and extort money from you in forms of a ransom demand. The nastiest form, and it is very obvious if you've got that, because it will happen within seconds. Go onto YouTube and look at some examples of the ransomware you will get. You will see that one click within seconds, you're talking 4 or 5 seconds, your computer is completely locked. That's how quickly this happens. To the left-hand side, it could just be genuinely somebody just trying to steal data, just trying to steal information. So it's going to take you to a website page where you have to log in your details or log in your credentials. You turn around and go to the page, you're putting your email address, you're putting your password, you click, nothing happens. Then you might do it again because nothing happened, and then you just turn around and walk away and think, well, that didn't seem to work, and just forget all about it. But obviously what you've done is you've given your email account and your password to a hacker. Now, let's think about it. If I'm a hacker and I've now got your email address and your password, I can go onto your account on my own PC and download your entire email account onto my PC, all your history, all your attachments. But more important, I can see what emails you get as well as what you send. As a hacker, I can turn around and change the default settings of your email account, which means I see the emails before you do, which gives me the ability then to perhaps change information. And you may be aware, or you may have seen, there's been examples of payments being made through email accounts where bank details have been changed. And this is the kind of thing that's happening. There's a man in the middle that's intercepting every single email. And obviously, once I've got your email account, I can send emails to lots of people, which I can claim to be you and send them malicious emails and everything that's going through. All because you've given me access to your email account. The other thing we need to bear in mind, and hopefully no one on the call, no one on the webinar here that's listening to this will be doing this, but invariably most accounts that you log onto or most online accounts you've got, your user ID will be your email address. Okay, so by having your email address, a hacker has the ability to turn around and potentially get into all these other sources. And if you use the same password, they are immediately into all your other online accounts. So I deal with this. I've got a separate password to every single online account that I use, but my wife doesn't. So when she had an email compromise, I told her she needed to go in and change all the passwords. And obviously it took her hours to go in and create and change all these passwords. But unless she did that, it meant that the hacker was able to intercept and go into everything and basically steal even more details. The other kind of stuff that this stealing of data will be was just trying to steal your credit card details or your bank account details. And often with this kind of stuff, you won't necessarily see any material or damage or impact to you personally. But obviously what you don't know is what's going to happen in terms of that hacker, what they're going to do with the data, or what cybercrimes are going on there. And often your details or your compromised device is now being used to facilitate a bigger attack against a bigger organisation through something called denial of service. And this is the kind of stuff that we're seeing. Or the other consequence of clicking on a phishing email is that you will inject malware or malicious software onto your computer. Now, often the hacker themselves may be targeting you because you have a vulnerability on your computer. So it may be a term that you're familiar with, I've heard, but patching. Patching is updates or information being taken from the software provider to plug gaps in the code within the software, often referred to as bugs or fixes. So patching is something that's happening all the time to repair damaged coding within software. Now, if you don't patch, that creates a vulnerability, and hackers are able to use that vulnerability in order to inject their own code or create code that enables them to take control of your device. Now, I saw a live hack a couple of years ago whereby the company was able to find out a piece of software, all the computer devices worldwide that hadn't patched this software. So I said this was a couple of years ago, so in 2018. This was to do with a software update that was issued in 2013. So we're talking about software that hadn't been updated since 2013. And there's something like 450,000 devices worldwide that hadn't been patched. Now, what this company was able to do was create some malware that deliberately plugged or attacked this vulnerability. And once they attacked the vulnerability, they were able to take over the computer itself. So now, what they will do and how they will do that, of course, is they will send you a phishing email to get you to click on a link, and that link then provides a patch update into that software vulnerability that genuinely allows the hacker to take over your computer. So this live demonstration we saw the hacker was able to turn on the camera, was able to turn around and see what this person was doing, but then they was able to turn around and start logging, or what's called key logging, whereby they were able to see all the websites this person had visited, and by putting a key log on there, that they was able to tell the computer next time this person visits this site, such as your bank account, track the keys that were used. So over time, they would learn the access codes into all of your key secure accounts through just login information that goes through with it. The malware that you inject that's attacking a vulnerability may in itself be stealing information or stealing data from you, or it may be something called a Trojan. Now, Trojan, as the name describes, is a computer it's something that claims to be genuine or original, that the computer will recognise it as something genuine when in fact it's not. And the Trojan invariably will then create an exploit that eventually will turn around and cause damage or steal information. And one other version of a Trojan is a remote access Trojan. Now, remote access will be familiar to all of us because if, like, say, for example, you have a problem with your computer, somebody can take it over for you externally. So this could be your IT team, this could be Microsoft, whereby you are giving them permission through remote access for them to take over your computer. What is happening within the cybercrime world is that there's remote access Trojans, so therefore these are doing exactly the same thing, but they are hidden or purporting to be something they're not, and enables a hacker to overtake your computer like the IT company would if you gave them access, without you being aware that it's actually happened. And things like the security controls you have on your devices, such as antivirus software, may not even notice it, and therefore without even being aware, you may have been hacked and someone's on your device and doing stuff. And this is the kind of thing that a lot of people don't realise, that clicking on the phishing email is the door opener to all of these kinds of things. And in a lot of cases, some of the attacks that will happen on a user is because the hacker's been on the device for 12 months, 24 months, gathering data, gathering information to commit a wider crime. And it comes back to, you click on the phishing email, you've allowed this to happen, because by you clicking the email, you've bypassed all your security defenses, because you're basically telling the computer that this is okay. So you may get alerts, you may get warnings, but by you clicking to say this is okay, the computer will accept you as the user, accepting this is. It's a bit like security for your home. And obviously, for most people's homes, you've got windows and doors that are all kept closed and locked. So therefore, the only way into your home is when you open the door and allow somebody in. If you leave a window open, someone can break in without you knowing it. And it's the same with a phishing email. It's the same as your home security, is that you've got everything in place to block or stop this happening. But the minute you click on it, you've allowed it to, you've opened the door, you've opened the window to allow that to happen. So that's talking about the kinds of threats. It's very common, and unfortunately, we're seeing more and more of it and more money being lost. But why are these things being committed? So the first thing we need to bear in mind is that people are trying to steal data. Okay, this is what it's all to do with. Cybercrime, cyber attacking is all about stealing data, because data is valuable. Data is probably the most valuable asset now for most companies or most businesses. It has a material value. And whether that's to the hacker themselves or to the cyber criminals that are going to use it, data is valuable. In most cases, all of the hacks and everything you'll be doing is because by stealing information, somebody is going to make money out of that. You've also got DDoS attacks. Now, DDoS attacks is exactly the same as the hackers will turn around and compromise your device, but they will be using your device as part of what's called a denial of service attack to a bigger company. So this could be a cybercrime gang that wants to bring down one of the big insurers or the big banks. So they attack millions of devices worldwide, and then they use all of those devices to hit, say, the website address of the bank or whatever, in order to turn around and bring down that bank. I went to a live demo from one of the big insurers. They had a denial of service attack where their website kept crashing, and as a result of that kept crashing, they were receiving constant ransomware demands from the hackers. Or from the cybercrime gang. So you're then into this battle of what the security team within the insurance company were able to do to keep or defend against whatever the cyber attackers were doing. And if they were able to cause sufficient disruption, then there may come a point where it was in the insurance interest to actually pay the ransom in turn to make them go away. I won't show this video, but this is another video that's definitely of interest, and this is called The Anatomy of Attack. It's come from Cisco, and this talks about, I've said a few times here, is that when you click on a phishing email, something happens, you just don't necessarily know what's been created. So this shows you a hacker. It shows you a hacker that's turned around and done a really good job in hacking into a blue chip company. The hacker was being paid by a cybercrime gang that then created a serious ransomware attack against the blue chip company, whereby the share price crashed and there's all sorts of issues. And the hacker, who was a young university graduate, was sitting in a coffee shop one day and saw that this ransomware attack and how this big blue chip company was going through turmoil as a result of a hack going through. And a flyaway comment she passed, well, I was being paid to hack into this company. I didn't realise this was going to be happening, but I did a good job. I turned around and was being paid to do this job. I did a good job. I didn't know this was going to happen. It's an interesting watch because it shows you how serious and how easy this can happen, but the threat is often anonymous. You're not quite sure who, you're not quite sure where it's coming from. Now, as I said, data is a valuable asset. Now, money wires will turn around and put some value against what kind of information is worth. Now, through the dark web is what the cyber criminals will be using to gain all this information that's being stolen from our devices by hackers. So the hackers will steal the information, they'll post it on the dark web, and it has a material value that can turn around and be placed against each piece of information. So all these people in the past said, well, why would somebody want to hack me? Well, the reason they want to hack you is because they can steal information that they can then sell. And as you can see, there's some pretty interesting or valuable stats against just the kind of data that's being taken there. So at the top, proof of identity or passport, £40 to £45. Now, if you're a business and you've got 50 staff, as part of employment regulations and HMRC requirements, we have to hold proof of identity of every member of staff. So that means if you've got 50 staff, immediately you've got 50 times 40 odd quid's worth of information. That's a valuable return to a hacker. They can then sell that information to the criminal world that can then use a copy passport, obviously for much greater fraud or damage. And then you get into things like your credit card details, £56. Just stealing your credit card information and your security is worth £56 per item. And as I said, I mentioned earlier on about British Airways, and they lost 350,000 credit card details through a fake website page that was created on their website. So that hacker that created that, 350,000 times £56 is a valuable return. It's definitely in the interests of a hacker to turn around and steal that information. But of course, once your credit card details and payment details are live in the dark web, people can go on and start buying stuff through your credit card. So the hacker themselves makes a nice return, but actually there's other fraud that can then be created with that. And similarly with your bank account details, £167. Even down to things like your Netflix account or your Facebook account or your Apple account, all of that information is worth money. So your Apple ID and password is worth around 11 quid. So as I said, people will steal this kind of information because they're going to be paid royally for selling it on the dark web. They themselves may not be doing or cause any damage. So anybody that says, why would somebody want to turn around and access my PC or steal information? It's because data is valuable. And some of these values, you would never guess that they were worth the kind of money that we're talking about, but actually it does cause serious consequences, but you may not yourself be aware or see the damage that goes with it. So that's just giving you hopefully a background of the kind of things that's going on to raise the awareness. Now we're going to talk about, because we're in this unusual circumstances of COVID-19, the risks from working from home. So most of us have been forced into the position because of lockdown that we're now working from home, and the risks associated with that will perhaps be dependent whether you're using, when you're working from home, a work device or your own device. Okay. Now, if we think of just a comparison between the two, a work device is usually secured or configured by your IT company or by IT support. So it's been set up to be a secure device, which means that it's got defences on there, like your home. We're talking about your home as a secure with locked windows and doors, but you may have CCTV cameras or alarms. So a company device has been set up with additional security in order to prevent people breaking through. It would also have antivirus and anti-malware filters and blocks on there. So should something happen on the device, you've got software that will stop the damage or cause an issue. You've probably then got spam filters that will stop certain traffic coming through to you or stop you from going onto a dodgy website or a website that could be malicious, as well as the IP blocks, which means that certain devices are going to be blocked from going. This will all be configured or set up by your security to make the device more secure. We've also got patch. Your device through work is likely to be fully patched, which means all of the software on there doesn't have any vulnerabilities. Now, I mentioned earlier on about patched devices and vulnerabilities. I mentioned about that unpatched software from 2013 that was hacked in 2018. A fully patched device will make your overall cyber security and access by a hacker into your device a lot less likely. But you also have restrictions around what you can and can't do. So you can't just download software onto a company device because you don't have the permissions to be able to do it. What you'll also see is most company devices will be encrypted, which means that should you lose it or should it be stolen, the information has got strong password security in it to prevent people accessing information they shouldn't have access to it. As well as that, your work device has probably got some form of endpoint control, which means that it's being monitored. Now, this is often an agent or something that's on your mobile devices, your phones or whatever it may be, but it means that should you have something bad or suspicious or unusual happening, that it can be centrally controlled, centrally wiped, or and so on and so forth. So work devices tend to be a lot more secure, depending on which of these measures are in place, than a home device. So if you turn around and think working from home, you're now doing everything on your home PC, what security controls have you got in place to protect access to your data? Now, you may be saying, well, you do everything through the cloud, but your device not being secure means a hacker could get into your device that enables them to get the password details into your cloud account. So therefore, they access all the information that goes through it. So a home device is likely to be less secure than a correctly configured device that's owned by the business, which makes it more vulnerable should you be subject to attack. Home device, do you have antivirus and filtering software on your computers? Now, if you've bought good antivirus software, then you'll have all the filtering that goes with it. But do you have it at all? And have you got a free version? Because obviously what you get for free may not be quite as good as the paid versions, etc., etc. The software on your computer, are you religious about making sure that it's patched, so therefore you have no vulnerabilities? And equally, if you're going to use your own device, are there permissions that your restrictions that the business have placed for you through something called bring your own device policy, or policies in place that the company says you can and what you can and can't do? Because without any of that kind of information, it means that what you do working from home is far less secure than it would be. But the kinds of things that we need to be thinking about working from home: are we less diligent when we sit in our kitchen or our study or our office working from home? have we got the same mindset in terms of security as when we're working in the office around what's lying around and who can access or use our device? Because if we're not, then immediately you've lowered or lessened the security, general security awareness that goes with it. Now, if this is a PC, your home PC that other family members can use, then there is a potential, obviously, that someone else can see data to do with your company that is confidential, that they shouldn't be seeing, which in itself is a data breach. Your home devices or working from home, what's your password hygiene like? Is it as good as what it is when you're working from a company device where you've perhaps got layered security and multi-factor authentication or two-factor? Do you have that kind of stuff on your home device? Because if you don't, again, it's a lot easier for someone to hack into a password that's less secure than a strong one. Typically, a password of less than 8 characters can be broken by what's called brute force, which is software that will just run a series of random checks against numbers until it guesses the password. Can be broken in minutes. A password of around about 8 characters will probably take around about a year. A password of around 12 characters will probably take about 3 years. And then when you overlay added security around symbols, numbers, etc., you make it much more difficult for it to be broken or hacked. Unfortunately, when you're working outside a secure office, the likelihood or risk of a loss or theft of device is greatly increased. So working from home, we are more likely to lose data or our device than we would do if it was kept within the secure offices. There's also the risk we may be using new technology, which we don't quite understand, and using new technology, such as things like adding things into our Wi-Fi network, may create a vulnerability that a hacker can tap into. Personal Wi-Fi access. Obviously, everything we do usually goes through a Wi-Fi box or router whereby you can get onto the internet. And all hacks have to be enabled through the internet. If you're not on the internet and your device is not connected to the internet, a hack or a cyber attack can't happen. But where you are using it, then it will be down to how secure your Wi-Fi is. Now, most cases now, most modern Wi-Fi routers have good inbuilt security. But what they also have is a default password. And those default passwords are known to the cyber criminals. So therefore, your BT Internet Home Box or Home Hub or whatever if you've never changed the password on your router, then you may be giving easy access to a hacker to go through. So we do need to look at our Wi-Fi boxes and routers and going through a process of changing the password to make it harder for people to break into it. Hard copy records. And obviously, if we're working in an office and we've got paper, we tend to keep it secure, that at the end of the day, it's locked in a drawer. But equally, if we're going to dispose of it, we will shred it or put it into a confidential waste bin. What do we do when we work from home? Do we just put it in our waste bins, which means that somebody else could access information, or are we ripping it in small pieces? I don't know, but there is a greater risk of doing that. You've also then got the thought of what happens if you've been using your own device doing lots of things when you return to work. How do we get all the information we've got now stored on our PC securely set up and transferred back into our work environment? And of course, if you're using cloud platforms or accessing your company data through the server, then the information is already stored within the computer. But if you're not and storing it on your desktop or your computer itself, then there's challenges that come through with that. Other considerations. From a business point of view, if people are using their own devices, how can you control what they are doing? How can you control what they do? And should there be a problem or a risk going through, how can you limit the damage that goes through with it? And then we've got things like video conferencing, obviously using video conferencing, and how securely do we do that? Now we've seen, or you may have seen, constant updates or information coming through that Zoom is less secure than some of the other platforms. And we've seen evidence of Zoom being hacked or bombed, whereby users are getting into the system that shouldn't be allowed or don't have access to it. We also got the issue around patching, that we may not be patching or we may not have secure software on our devices. If we're working from home, so if we have a security incident, how do we report that? Because again, the requirements under things like GDPR to report where you've had a data breach don't go away, they're still there, but how do we do that? And data in transit, so information that's being transferred, how do we keep it secure? So there's lots of things that happen when we're working from home that create far greater risk than they do when we're working from a secure environment. If we're using secured devices that have been set up by the company, given us by the company, then the risk are greater. But these are things that we need to be aware of, and in particular, if you're a business owner and allowing staff to work from home, create a bigger challenge. So finally, how do we protect information? How do we keep ourselves safe? So again, with just a couple of slides here, sort of thoughts to go through, but there's a lot of information which I'll share with you as best I can in its simple format. But this is information that perhaps if you're not sure about, you can go and talk to your IT company, or I said use the information we provide at the end in order to contact us. So first and foremost, phishing emails that have got a link. If your rule and behaviour is such that you never click or use a link in an email, your chances of that step one or that common form of attack are greatly minimised. So what I'm talking about here is if you get an email saying there's a problem with your Netflix account, don't use the link in that what's come through on the email. Go onto Netflix through the website, through the legitimate channel, to see if it's genuine. Equally, if it's something to do with your LinkedIn account, there's a problem, go direct to LinkedIn, don't use the link, and that will be a strong way of keeping yourself safe. Use strong passwords. And as I said, a password of at least 12 characters is going to be greater or more stronger than a 6 to 8 digit password. And then if you're using that, making that more complex with numbers, letters, symbols, you're going to make it a lot harder. Now, the longer the password, the better. And as I said, the guidance that comes out from the National Security Centre now says just use 3 random words. Use the first line of your favourite song or something, just to make that password that much harder to break in or to force. And where you can, switch on multi-factor authentication or two-factor authentication. Most security, Apple and Microsoft Windows and access to your Office 365 accounts now have all of this built in, but you do need to enable it. So multi-factor authentication just provides an added layer of security whereby, and you would have seen this, that if you log onto your email account from a new device, you're going to get a pop-up that's asking you to enter a security code. The security code will be sent to you probably through your mobile phone as a text, and it'll be a 6-digit code. You then enter your 6-digit code and you're able to use your account on a different device to what you do normally. So it's an added layer of security, but the key thing here is if we're talking about your email account and someone else is trying to access it, they won't have that second layer of authority to be able to get into your email account. So it is a absolutely 100% recommended advantage that we should be looking to use. So where we can, switch on multi-factor authentication. Make sure we have antivirus and malware software on our computers and scan regularly. So some of us have got it and we just leave it there, but we don't actually scan. And the scan is doing a deep dive to turn around and check and make sure everything's going through and kept up to date and safe. And the other thing we need to make sure is that we continue to make sure that the software is updated. So where you can, switch it on to auto update, because of the volume of threats and viruses out there, they're changing by the minute. So therefore, the defences we've got in place, such as antivirus software, need to be kept up to date in order that all of those new viruses, all those new problems are being made aware of and protected against through what you do. Depending on what kind of setup you've got, your firewall is your first line of defense in terms of most security. So make sure your firewall is switched on. Now, invariably, if you've loaded things like antivirus software, it may impact or have a bearing on the firewall, but your firewall on any individual device should be enabled as an additional security measure to block anything that shouldn't be coming through. Where you can, encrypt your device. So Apple iPhones, you can encrypt your devices. Most devices now come with the option to switch on encryption, and it just means that should you lose your device, there's an added security password on there to prevent unauthorized access or people not being able to access where they don't have permissions. Make sure we patch all our software regularly, and where we can, add VPN or virtual private network. So this is encrypting the access we have when we're using websites or links. So it just means that if you're in a public space and you are using public Wi-Fi through the VPN, people can't watch or see what you're doing. Again, it's an added form of security, but it provides a shield or blanket around what you do in order to make what you do more safer or more secure than not having anything at all. And backup. As I mentioned before, ransomware will lock your device. If you have a backup, which means it's a full replicated copy of everything you've got, you'll be able to rebuild and access information and rebuild it. So backup is obviously another critical aspect. And for many of us on our home devices, we probably don't back up at all, or we may back up through our iCloud accounts or cloud accounts without really knowing what we've got. For myself, I use all of those backup through the cloud, but I've also got a hard drive that I copy the information, so I have two forms of backup. So hopefully, if ever I have a problem, I've got defences against it. Then we move over to right. So we need to be alert the fact that the volume of phishing emails and scams out there is massively increased in the light of things like coronavirus. So we've all seen more. So therefore, we do need to be a lot more alert or aware to it. And as I said, don't click on anything. You're invariably going to keep yourself safe. Because of the issue working from home, try and keep anything business and personal data, i.e. business data and your own data, separately. Obviously easy if you've got a work device. If you're working on your home device, then you do need to try and think about how you separate the data and the information. When it comes to visiting websites, only visit or trusted websites that you know are genuine, and only use trusted third-party apps. So if you're using something like your Android phone or an iPad, things that come from the the App Store, or things that come through Google Store, will tend to be trusted third-party apps. Anything outside of those, you do need to be very aware, because they're more likely to be suspicious or have malicious software or something that's going to cause you a problem. If in doubt, shout. No matter what you do, if you've clicked on something that may be a problem, then you do need to start shouting and asking for help, because it comes back to what you may have clicked on. You don't know the consequences, so you do need to think about that up front. Make use of some of the cyber awareness tools are out there. As I said, the National Cybersecurity Centre is putting out a plethora of information, some really good information to help keep you safe. So therefore, make use of it, because the more awareness we've got of the kinds of problems, the more likely we are to be able to keep ourselves safe or minimise the kind of threat. You can't always guarantee that you will be 100% safe, but all of these measures are designed to turn around and keep you safer. And where you can, insurance. So cyber insurance is something that we should all be considering, whether personally or certainly through businesses, because unfortunately the likelihood of us being the victim of a crime is significant, and that could have financial consequences. So therefore, that's something we can insure against. And with cyber attacks and threats, the number one threat to any business is certainly something you've not got, you should be thinking about. So, National Cybersecurity Centre, I've mentioned it a couple of times. For those working from home, they've issued a very good guide around what you can do working from home and in terms of response to coronavirus and the issues that go with it. We've got Take 5. Take 5 is part of the police. So Action Fraud is a department that's been set up by the police to help. And they talk about always trust your instincts. There's some fantastic videos on the Take 5 website to try and help you. Very quickly, I'll touch on video conferencing tips. We're increasingly using all sorts of video conferencing, whether it's WebEx or Microsoft Teams, Zoom. There's lots of them out there. And there's been some guidance issued through the National Cybersecurity Centre and their equivalent in the USA, following information through the FBI in terms of the kinds of hijacking and problems we're seeing. So some terms of tips. I won't go through all of these because you can read these at a separate time, but try and keep anything you do through video conferences private, so don't make them public, which means don't post details of your video conference on public sites such as Eventbrite. If you're going to set up a video conference and you don't want the information is meant to be secure, then make sure you send personal invites to people with the URL or the link, in order that you're minimising the kind of damage that's going through. Where you can, try not to screen share, because screen share could enable access to somebody that you don't want, or access to information that shouldn't happen, or create some kind of malicious software or injection that goes through with it. And make sure that you've got good policies that go with it. So just a final couple of slides, which is other guidance that may be of interest to you. So the ICO is the UK's regulator for data privacy. They've issued lots of information around why data is important, what we should be doing about it. Action Fraud and Take 5, lots of useful video tips and guidance around what does phishing email mean, how do you protect etc. The National Cybersecurity Centre, I've already referenced 2 or 3 times. For businesses themselves, there's something called Cyber Essentials. Cyber Essentials is a security standard that a business can turn around and look to complete in order to reduce their cyber risks by around about 80%. A security standard to help you keep safe or prove to you you're doing the right kind of things. Then we've got sites such as Have I Been Pwned? This is a legitimate website that basically looks to check if your email account has ever been compromised. Well worth registering for it. So I'm registered for this. So if ever my email account appears on the dark web, I will get a notification, which means I can go through those good hygiene matters of changing passwords and so on and so forth. The other thing is that often we don't think about, but when we dispose of our personal devices, that we don't delete all the data that's on those devices, and commonly now people recognise that, so therefore can go into the household waste sites, steal a couple of computers, and before you know it, your data's been stolen and used. The air ambulance provide a hardware destruction free of service, so if you've got a device, contact the air ambulance and they will securely recycle your device and remove all your data. So very conscious of the time. You've been listening very patiently for the last hour. I will finish the presentation there. So at the end you have my contact telephone number and my email address. So if there's any content that's come through today that you'd like a bit more information, then please reach out. I'm happy to respond. Equally, talk to your IT advisors, talk to IT experts, because this is all common information that will be able to help you. So thank you for listening. I hope that information has been helpful. We've touched on quite a lot of ground, but listen, enjoy the videos and links that I've shared with you, and obviously keep safe and be alert, because that way we'll keep ourselves safe from cyber attack. Thank you for listening and enjoy the rest of your days. Thank you.